You know that internal debate that happens when you're making work? The one where you're torn between creating what excites you versus what you know people have been asking you to make. The stuff you didn't have on your making wish list, but 3 people last weekend at a market asked if you make butter dishes or garlic keepers or travel mugs or, heaven forbid, bacon makers. So now you're thinking maybe you should prioritize making those instead of that experiment you really wanted to try and had gotten so excited about. I think most of us have probably been there, wondering if we should follow our artistic desires or play it safe with something more commercially viable. And if you went to art school, well, you probably relate to this tension even more because, let's be honest, while traditional academia can be incredible at teaching us to think about art conceptually and about our work and what it means, to engage with that capital A art world of meaning and philosophy and even critique, when it comes to the practical skills of making a living, the nitty-gritty of learning to work efficiently from a craftsmanship standpoint and pricing work appropriately, or understanding what it actually takes to sustain a creative practice financially. And let's not even get to talking about marketing and sales and website and business practices. Well, you know how I feel about all of this. That is often left out. And frankly, if anyone who works in higher education is listening, nodding along, agreeing, knowing that this is a gap in the curriculum, please call me. Or email me, rather. I'm not going to publicly say my phone number out loud. I get enough spam as it is. The point being, I would be thrilled to teach a professional practices course. Or just a visiting lecture, whatever. Just putting it out there. The point is, in reality, we need both if we want to make a living from the things we make. Work that feeds our soul and that pays our bills. So what does it look like to honor your creative vision while also maintaining a technically sound and sustainably efficient foundation that allows you to pursue this dream with some level of sustainability? Today's conversation with Olivia Avery explores the pursuit of this balance. Olivia creates functional pottery adorned with detailed botanical motifs that can take hours to complete. Her teapots are works of art that happen to actually pour tea and pour it well. And her pricing reflects the time and the skill that they require. We dig into how her rigorous undergraduate training in production throwing became the technical foundation that now allows her creative freedom, why she's willing to accept a smaller customer base for appropriately priced work, and how she's working on navigating the unpredictability of art markets. Spoiler, did someone mention an email list, perhaps? Maybe? Just saying. Whether you're struggling with the art versus commerce question yourself, curious about the realities of making a living through art fairs, or just want to hear from someone who's found a way to honor both their creative vision and their need to pay rent, this conversation offers a refreshingly honest look at what it takes to build a sustainable creative practice without compromising your artistic integrity. Oh, and I'm trying something new at the very end, so you're going to have to listen all the way through, but just as a little teaser, it involves bloopers. And we'll get into all of it right after this brief word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by The Community, your creative business support system with over 100 makers from around the world, with both the practical education you need to make a living from the things you make, found in our masterclasses on topics like finances, marketing, and SEO, plus the emotional support of fellow makers who truly understand what it's like to try and make a living from the things we make. It's like having both a business school designed specifically for artists and a team of colleagues who actually get what you're going through. But you don't have to take my word for it.
Hi everyone, this is Melissa from MWY Pottery, and I'm so glad to have found the Maker's Playbook community. Rebecca has done an amazing, thoughtful job of curating a group of people who really care about each other and root for each other. Some folks in the community have been members for years, and it's very clear why. I joined about a year ago, and already I've learned so many things from the other members that have helped me make important business decisions based on things that I hadn't learned or seen anywhere else on Instagram or other places on the internet. The community is for all sorts of people, from full-time artists to side saunterers like myself. I love that Rebecca leads with her values, which is so important, especially nowadays in the US. If you're interested in learning more, I'd be happy to answer any questions and share my experience. Please feel free to send me a message on Instagram at MWYPottery. Thanks.
Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 14 years, Rebecca Ikes Cara. Hey, Olivia. Welcome to the podcast. Before we just keep randomly going wherever we go, I am going to make you introduce yourself. So take it away however you want, in whatever context you want. Third person, first person, bio-autographical,
Okay, I'm Olivia Avery. Do I need to tell them what I do? I make pots. I work with clay. My bread and butter is functional ware, but I love to dabble in everything non-functional too. I am a thrower, and I throw a ton of really, really, really thin pot, sometimes to my own detriment, and adorn the services with plant motifs and dots like you wouldn't believe.
I have wondered about your hand. I feel like people do people ask you for recommendations of varying surface treatment things? Because I'm scared for carpal tunnel every time I look at one of your teapots. I'm like,
The teapots are fun, and I have to be really intentional about when I'm making them. The thing I get asked most is typically by older women when I'm at shows is how I'm protecting my body. And I usually say that, oh, I'm not, and kind of laugh. And the truth is I'm kind of not. I'm so glad you brought this up. But I'm very passionate about moving the body and strengthening the tendons and muscles outside of the studio. And it helps my studio work a lot. So I've been doing yoga 1 to 2 times a week for the last probably year and a half, 2 years. And that has changed the way my spine has felt. I adjust my wheel to different levels and throw at a higher level than what's, customary. So I think strengthening outside the studio would probably be my best answer to that, as well as take lots of breaks. If your hands hurt, stop. I didn't used to think like that.
what?
Right? I didn't used to think like that. And then I was doing production for a small studio here in Memphis when I first moved back. I was trained as a production potter. I can throw a ton of pots in one day. And so I was throwing like 70 to 80 pots in a day. But by the time I would get to like 60, my hands would start like cramping closed, like think like crab claws, but closed. They would start cramping closed, and I would still try to throw because I'm like, well, I'm not a bitch, I'm just going to keep going. And the owner, my boss, would be like, hey, so this isn't productive. If your body's telling you no, you should stop. And I was like, oh, I guess I've never thought of that. That's a really good thing. So if my body is telling me no, I stop. But I still spend hours now.
But also, thank goodness for someone in the position of being a boss to actually say that, because I feel like it could have easily been a different environment where you were in so much pain, you're in tears, but you're still having to push because you have to meet whatever minimum number of pots in a day. I mean, hopefully there's not many environments like that anymore, but, for sure back in the day, and I'm sure they still exist in some places.
In some places, yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So when you say trained as a production potter, actually, I feel like we are a dying breed, if you will. I don't know. I want to know what that means for you and where that came out of, because my assumption was always like, oh, you went to school for this. And for me, for university, it was always very art capital A focused and not necessarily craftsmanship skills we learned how to talk about something big and meaningful or something philosophical, but not necessarily, the actual practice of something. So walk us back a little bit on that background is the point I'm rambling on to.
I love it. And I love the capital A art approach. And we had some of that, but it was typically that happens more in sculpture classes and in painting classes. And, we were able to talk about, you could say, the abstract or the cosmos, the capital A art, the what is art, how do we define it? And, if we're artists, how do we live? What do we do? The professor I had, one of a kind guy, was also the chair of the department, but he's a ceramics and sculpture professor, and he talked a lot about capital A art. But in terms of our work, we didn't, in ceramics at least, jump to making this really conceptual work. And in my opinion, we were taught skills and craftsmanship first. And I mean, I remember he used to say, like, you can think about art like this, and that will make you a good person, a good artist. Like, that will take your brain to the place that needs to go. But if you make garbage work, it doesn't matter what you think. So you're going to make really good work, and you're going to think about these ideas, and then you're going to put them together at some point. He goes, and sometimes, like, don't make up some sort of bullshit concept and make work about it. He was like, your craftsmanship can be your content. How well you make something can be the sole reason someone picks that up or looks at it or stares at it. And so that was kind of drilled in, and I learned to throw really thin there. He had 0 tolerance for heavy pots, and they would get broken or thrown away, and, here's where we're going to start making. You have 40 pieces on the table. You have 20 pieces on the table by Friday. It's Monday. And so, okay, if you have 20, you make double. And so he taught us how, and that teaches you, and I teach my assistants this too, you get to learn self-evaluation of your work really quick. You're making a ton of work, but you can pick out the 20 best ones. Normal people can pick out the 20 best pots out of that lineup. So on the one hand, it kind of sucked to make that much work, but on the other hand, the practice was invaluable, and you learn to cull bad work and self-evaluate really quickly. And I've had to work myself out of that brain because I don't make production work anymore. But my clay circle would say, you throw like you're a production potter, though. And I'm like, but I don't mind making 15 and 20 pieces a day. Like, that's fine with me. That's nothing compared to 70.
In my opinion, that's just you being efficient. Just because you're full time doesn't mean you don't want to be efficient. Just because you're
Right.
side hustling, of course you're forced to be efficient then. But like your time, all of our times, doesn't matter what you're doing to make money or not. Our time is our most valuable resource. It's our most precious, non-renewable resource.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to use those skills, either cultivate them if you don't have them yet, or once you have them, use them to your advantage? I mean, you're doing a lot of surface. Why would you want to throw slower, given the amount of time I imagine it takes you to do that surface decoration?
Right. And that's something I have to think about in terms of, like, my schedule. Okay, I have a show in a month. Usually I have to start surface work a month out from a show so I can finish. Hopefully,
Yeah.
all of the stuff I have just thrown. But if I'm on it and I have my team here because I had to get some help, like, okay, I'm throwing and trimming and decorating all on the same day. Things are moving. Someone's throwing a liner glaze in these pots and I'm decorating them the next day. But, this to me is not production. And I love throwing, but it can go pretty quick, especially if it's a small, like, cup, a handleless cup, a vase. I don't have to handle this. I can throw it, trim it, move it along. It's great.
Anything without a handle.
Ah! I charge so much for a handle. So much.
As one should.
I just can't stand it. I was doing handles before this. But it's kind of a blessing and a curse. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this, a couple months ago. Maybe it was at Antica, and she's in clay cohorts. She does surface. She does surface. She said, I told them my favorite stage of clay is leather hard. And they said, well, why aren't you doing more decor work at leather hard then? If that's your favorite stage of clay, figure out a way to do your work at your favorite step. So I'm trying to implement some of that, which is really hard because it slows down my process. It's very difficult, but I'm excited to see where it goes. And, we can get into the fun things I'm doing in my studio at another time if you want.
So you've mentioned assistants. I want to know, obviously, this is why I started the podcast. This will come as no surprise. I want to know how it all works because it's hard enough to make a living as a potter, as an artist. So to also then have assistants and also, unless your skincare routine is just exponentially better than mine, I think you are a bit younger than I am. So I'm like, how are you out here doing all this? So from my perspective, so quickly.
Wow, thank you.
I was like, that should be a compliment.
Wow, I did just turn 30. How old are you?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
just
all
move
right.
it along.
You can cut it out. Whatever. I did just
I'm
turn
rounding up
30.
I'm rounding up to the next decade. So congrats, the 30s are awesome.
Congrats. I can't wait. I can't wait to deep dive into them and the 40s. But I love aging, so I'm ready. I also have a very specific diet, but we can talk about that another time. So the easiest answer I could say is I don't pay my assistants. And you're going to have a bunch of probably angry men on the other side of this podcast saying, how could you not pay? I have a lot of college students. Either I connect with their professor, I connect with them directly who are like, I need an intern credit and I live in your city, or I'm home for the summer in your city. And that's how I got started with my first assistant, whose name is also Olivia, which is hilarious. I connected with her professor at NCECA and he was like, do you ever need help? And I was like, so much. Yes, I'm drowning. And he was like, okay, well, I have a student who is from Memphis who will be home for the summer. She needs something to do. I want to keep her rolling around clay. The only problem is her name is Olivia as well. And I was like, it's okay. I can get past that. That's fine. And she has been like a unicorn. Like she can do anything I ask her. We talk about her work. We set up her schedule for her senior show. She's rolling into her senior semester. Will come unload a kiln and wash my bisque and liner glaze my stuff if I'm on the road for a show. She's great. She also house sits with my cat. It's very sweet of her. I've been really blessed to have her, but she, of course, went back to school. So I had to try to find, someone else to help me along in my process because I struggle to have inventory ever. And people would say, oh, supply and demand, charge more. And it's like, well, my stuff is very expensive already. And I have to justify that price to myself. Like, I don't want to charge $50 more because I don't think that mug is worth $50 more. So, I have to think about what I'm paying people, what I'm charging for them, and then how much time I'm spending doing stuff. So there's steps in my process that anyone can do. There's steps in my process that only I can do. Most of them, like 90% of them, but there's 10% that someone else can do. And my reclaim right behind me, this big green slot, someone else can do that. And then I'm also teaching students, here's how you color clay. Here's what mason stain is. We're going to make these glazes together. Here's how you liner glaze something. Here's what I believe about surface. Here's how you make really good pots. I mean, I sat down with that assistant and said, what does your throwing schedule look like? Do you want to be a professional potter? And she was like, yeah, we make about this many pieces per year. I said, you need to triple that. And she's like, well, I don't want to be production. I said, it's not about production. It's about practice. And you need to self-evaluate. You need to learn that skill now. Because when you're working in your studio alone, when you get out, no one's telling you, hey, that's a good pot or a bad pot. You got to know, and you got to move that direction. So the assistants are becoming a have to thing. So I just interviewed another student from the college here, and both of them were there today. I said to my assistant, Olivia, I said, I need you to train this new girl. I got handles to put on. She said, okay. Because there's 5 things that the assistants do. And so it's helped a lot.
So reclaim, liner glazes.
Mm-hmm. And
reclaim, liner glazes, loading kilns, probably, maybe.
Loading kilns. And then I'd say half of my work gets like a background coat of underglaze. So if it's a decor day, hey, you need to sit and paint all 50 of these pots blue. So they'll just sit down and just paint the pot. And I'm very particular. My attention to detail is a little insane. So things are done a certain way, and if they're not, we redo them until they're just that way. And it's harsh or whatever you want. It's direct, but it works. And then the expectation is clear. And, I've seen it benefit a few of these students and myself, and like I would have killed for an intern experience like this when I was in college. I had a very small one that was very different. And to have someone say, here's what I need help with, here's what I want you to do, and I'm going to teach you these 5 things. Let's talk about your goals. That would have been so helpful to me when I was a senior in college.
Well, and also when it's a position that we're not talking about the expectation of somebody moving across the country and working full-time in a studio for quote unquote experience and no pay, or about like presumably something like it sounds like it's something that is very fits within a very particular time for someone and not like a studio tech job where the amount of work you're expected to do versus what you get in return is imbalanced,
Right.
right? You're teching 40 hours a week in order to have access to a kiln and a place to throw.
Right.
Like, yeah,
Right.
that's not equal.
Right. The option for them to use the studio or use the kiln is always available. The option for them to say, hey, I'm doing more work than what I'm getting. I want money is always available. And that's, discussed when I interview them, of course. And then the option for them to say, hey, this is something I saw online or someone doing. Can you teach me how to do this? And there are some things that I don't know. I'm the first to admit. But yeah, if they want to learn how to make a teapot, like, let's do it. If you want to learn how to mix colored clay, let's do it.
I'm laughing because I'm like, if they want to learn how to make a teapot, Godspeed, best of luck to you. Have fun slitting your wrist.
We're going to
But
need all summer to make that teapot, sister.
I haven't attempted to make a teapot in 5 years, actually.
You should
I
do
know
it.
exactly the week. Maybe I'll come down to Memphis. Or apparently, we're going to be at the same show in a couple of weeks. So I
There you
find
go.
this wild. Okay, I actually want to talk about this right now that I mentioned it jokingly. Because this is the hilarious thing about the internet and like the perception of people. Because the shows that I see you going to are not the shows that we've been going to. And because I do think I see your work that it's functional, but I do think it has that capital A art. Like there's clearly a voice, there's clearly an aesthetic. We are very utilitarian. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that like we're not even trying to apply to Cherry Creek or whatever anytime
Right.
soon because it's super utilitarian. Like the lakefront show here in Milwaukee, we get waitlisted for every time. And when I see the potters that are in, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, here's a
Mhm.
lot more non functional work, or here's more decor, or whatever. And it makes sense. And that's fine. So I think it's hilarious that we're going to be at the same show. I hope it means it's actually going to be good.
It could be a terrible show for me. I mean, all those lovely things you said about my work, thank you. But it is also expensive and very specific. And most people don't look at it and see this is a functional object and I can have this beautiful dot covered thing every day and use it for coffee. It's not, it is hard to sell. And you're
Mm.
like, well, wait, you said you always have a problem with inventory. Why is it hard to sell? Because I have to do so many shows to sell it, it's hard for me to be home making the work because it takes so long to surface and, I mean, put together a teapot, of course. But I have put myself in so many of the wrong places, and that's part of my job is to figure out who to put my work in front of. So the show we're doing, it could be geared more towards utilitarian pots, and I love a utilitarian pot, sister. I love a beautiful one. I love a really ugly one. I love it.
I think you and Francesco are going to enjoy talking about the weight of pots, though, which is going to be great because we are on the
Ooh.
same page. And it's going to be nice to be at a show with somebody else with light pots and be like, see? Huh? See? Huh?
See?
It's
More people
possible.
do it.
No offense to our friends. I should say well balanced pots. That's what actually matters
Not
in my work.
everyone believes in thinner is better, and that's okay. But a lot of normal people come up and ask me, they're like, why is it so thin? A lot of men, I should say. And I say, well, I'm really good.
I love this. I'm actually going to I will credit you, but next time, because I'm, as the extrovert, half the time I'm responding to people. So I can say, like, because Francesco's really good and it's not a big deal, like, oh, I enjoy this. We had somebody once ask us if we use special clay. They thought we used special clay to make it so light. And I was like, nope, that's just,
Mm,
that's just 14 years of practice right there.
mm. I think it is also like, we live in this kind of clay vacuum, if you will. Okay. We get to see the intricate. We get to see everything from ceramic history in America. We get to see ceramic history in other countries. Like, we get to see it all. It's on our brains, you could say, all the time. But for normal people, they don't. Like, I did 2 shows in Michigan a couple weeks ago. I did the Ann Arbor show, and the amount of people that came up to me and said, "We've never seen anything like this before." And I was like, "What?" Like, there are people who are so much better than me up there. What are you talking about? You've never seen anything like this before? You should get out more. And I'm like, wait, okay, I have a very specific tunnel view into like this very niche or niche, however you say it, category of this tiny thing on this tiny piece of the world. Oh, yeah. So when people, oh, why is it so thin? Well, I'm really good, but you should meet some of my friends that are way better. I wish
I
everyone
love that.
existed in the clay world.
I also really love we were just talking in the community about like we every quarter we have like a theme of stuff that we talk about. Obviously other subjects come up as well, but just intentionally like a masterclass and then a bunch of Q&A and whatnot. And we're talking about markets. And, there's a lot of questions you get asked, number one, repeatedly, but also ones that can irk you. Ones that are annoying, that are like, why are you devaluing what I'm doing? And coming up with a way to have a quick, poignant, clever response that you can say with a smile that's not necessarily, you don't want to piss the person off that's in front of you because you are trying to sell your
Depends.
stuff.
It depends on the
Well,
person.
fair. But
Yes.
there's maybe people that we do like in the booth at the same time.
Well, yeah,
You want to make
right.
a point
You
sometimes,
wanna be
right?
professional
But I love that. And just being able to say, because I'm really good. Like
because I'm really
that's
good,
that.
and then
Like,
they're like, "Wow," and some people are like, "Well, okay." I get that question a
oh,
lot, "Oh, is this ceramic or is this porcelain?" And then I'm like, how do I answer that?"
same.
Like, in my brain, I'm like, do I be, like, really catty? Or do I use this as, like, an education opportunity? So that's what I've been trying to do. I'm gonna be professional. This is me presenting my work to the world. Okay, well, actually, porcelain is a type of clay. It's all ceramic. And they're like, so it's porcelain. That's why it's thin. And I'm like, okay, have a great day. Thanks for coming.
Right. Like, we got so close. We got so close.
Markets are a different beast. They really are.
They are. And I was doing my appropriate amount of internet sleuthing before we got on this call, trying to see if I could figure out how you do like tagline, make a living from the things you make. And it seems like markets are, for you right now at least, the predominant way that you're selling your work, or am I missing something?
No, you're kind of on the money. I do 15 to 20 shows a year. And
Mm.
I know it is really for some people, but it is sucking the soul out of me. So you could say, this is how I'm doing it right now, but I know that this will come to an end, or I'm working on the end of this reality. But I can put my work in front of 500,000 people in 3 days. If 1% of them buy something, if
I
10%
don't
come by
think there'll
my
be
tent,
500,000 people.
that's okay.
Just
I'm
so you know,
talking
the show we're doing together, I'm pretty sure won't be
That's okay.
500,000 people.
The last one I did, the Ann Arbor show, is 500,000 people come through the show. And some shows it's only 10,000. Some shows it's less. But I'm like, the amount of people that can at least just put eyes on my work in one weekend, how do I beat that? And some shows are really good. I can sell out of almost everything. That's awesome. That's a fat chunk of change. But in attempts to change that reality, because it's a ton of time on the road, because it is expensive, because it wears on me physically, mentally, emotionally, I'm being real. I have, in the last year, just started to develop an email list, because one day Instagram will flutter away. Just as lovely as she fluttered in, she's going to flutter out. And I wanted to start selling online because I've had like micro growth in my Instagram, right? But people who like my work who aren't in cities that I can go to. I go to cities that I can drive to typically. And they're in New York. I'm not driving to New York for the weekend. Maybe if I had 2 or 3 weekends or one on a show on the way, but that's a really hard sell for me. It's to drive to New York for the weekend. But those people want to purchase work. So I've been stalking my website a little bit more and developing this email subscriber list, which has helped. But I'm only like second website drop in. Like it's not enough for me to say whether it's working or not. But in the attempt to do fewer shows, not cut them out completely, but to do fewer shows and supplement income in a different way while still getting work out to people is really nice. Like I've got stuff on up on my site that I dropped what's today? 2 days ago. And when the site dropped, I was over here throwing pots. Like you can't beat that with a stick, you know?
Well, and I started to laugh when you were saying you only go to shows that you can drive to because I'm like, wait, okay, the hours from Memphis to Ann Arbor. I'm like, some people are going to be like, your definition of where you can drive to and someone else's definition is going to be dramatically different. I
Indeed.
appreciate that that's drivable, but that's because this is a Midwestern mentality. I'm like, why fly when it's only a 10-hour drive?
It's only 10. I mean, and to be fair, I did a show in St. Joe, Michigan the weekend before because Michigan was like the farthest I was going to go. And I said, well, I'm going to do two and I'll just stay. I have a friend who lives right outside of Detroit. So I went to St. Joe and did a show and then stayed with this friend in Detroit and then did the Ann Arbor show. So it ended up being worth it that way. But on the way home, I did stop at a hotel after 7.5 hours because I was just toast. I said, I'll get up on the drive tomorrow. It's fine.
Well, so thinking just logistically and pragmatically, because I'm hearing people's hypothetical voices in my head that might be listening. There's a couple of things running through my head. Number one, how the heck you figure out to decide on which shows you're actually choosing to go to. But before we even get to that, I'm thinking selfishly obviously for myself, I said selfishly. We've never done back-to-back. I mean, we've done back-to-back shows. Like the first year we did shows, we did 6 in a weekend, but we were coming home during the week,
Right.
running kilns, repacking pots, and leaving. So I'm just thinking about the sheer, not the making side of the inventory to prepare for 2 shows in a row. Like, yeah. The physical space of the transportation. Because we talk about this a ton. We are often the people rolling in with trailers, with the SUV and the trailer when the jeweler is rolling in the compact 4-door sedan.
With a little wagon pulled to their tent.
The one trip, so jealous.
I'm so jealous.
I did see a woman once with a school bus. That was
What?
impressive.
A school bus? Oh
She
my
drove
gosh.
up. She lives in Florida. I was like, see, now this makes sense to me, but I don't want to drive a school bus. She lives in Florida and she plans her markets in the Midwest and up north for the summer to get the hell out of Florida for like August for obvious temperature reasons. And so then she does a bunch of shows around and just has all this, has everything loaded up in a bus. And she can also, I think she's modified the inside. She can like sleep in it and whatever. But
Wow.
that's a huge vehicle to
That's
have
a
to have.
huge vehicle. I don't have a school bus, but I do have a cargo van that was a
Mhm.
gift from my partner's father. So I had to pay like under $1,000 for this thing, which I mean, I was like putting it out there to the world. Oh my God, I need a van because I was packing out my car and I was like, I don't want a trailer. The only thing I can bring less
Yeah.
of is less pots, and I can't do that. And I was looking at purchasing a van. Who's got an extra 30K just laying around?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, to put things into perspective, also, even just for a trailer, we had to work our butts off to find one that was not $3,000
Right,
for a
right.
4x6 trailer.
That's insane. Oh
Like,
my gosh.
there are shows that we do $3,000 in the whole weekend. So it's like
Right,
your whole weekend's revenue
right,
that's also supposed to help pay the mortgage and the groceries and the gas and the dog food. Like,
right.
for a trailer?
For a trailer.
On what planet?
It's
So, okay,
crazy.
so awesome. That's how we got the van. We
We
love
got the
him for it.
van.
Thank you so much.
We do. We do. It is from a meat company. So it did smell like Italian sauce. They're very Italian. It smelled like Italian sausage when we got it.
There are worse things.
It was essentially free, right? A couple $100 because they drove it down. They're in Seattle. They drove it down. We flew them back up. And then the cleaner and pressure washer I had to buy to get the van usable, right? But I have room. Like I have full built pedestals that I can just stand up in the van. my tent. I'm one of those bitches with pro panels. My pro panels are in there. My weights, my pot. I got it. I have a chair. It's all in there, and I have room. So if I ever wanted to bring more stock, I could. So for the Michigan shows, I mean, again, the stuff is very expensive and specific. It is rare, unless it's just a banging show, that I ever sell out. So I'm adopting this attitude lately, and it's helping my nervous system. I can only make as much as I can make. So I made as much as I could make. I decorated every bisque pot I had. Done. That's all I can do. And I wish I had had more cups and mugs, because in Ann Arbor I ran out and that's what people were buying. But at the first show, people were only buying vases and teapots. And there's like never a rhyme or reason. Never.
I just want to point out really quickly that when you say the first show, you're talking about St. Joe's, Michigan. You're talking about one weekend to the next weekend in the
Mhm.
same state, in the same country, obviously. And that makes me feel seen. Because
It's crazy.
as a person who loves to try and analyze and track the data and look at all the stuff, it is really, you can keep track of things maybe over a whole season and see if there's seasonal
Mhm.
trends. But even then, last summer, we could not make bud vases fast enough. We increased the price of them. They still sold like hotcakes. So this summer, we're coming in ready to have all these bud vases. Barely sold any. I
Right.
mean, we've sold them, but nothing comparatively. And it's just like, what happened?
There's no trend that I've found that I can follow, other than normal people can recognize the best piece in the tent, and it's usually the thing that sells first. Because I know which piece I love that I think is the best.
Interesting.
I mean, and I'll mark the hoe up, okay? Because I'm like, I love this piece. I could stare at it for months. So I'll throw extra. If it's a big piece, you mark up by percentage, whatever. I'll throw extra 10% on it. Typically the first thing that will sell. If it's its first show out, it'll sell right off the bat. It's very strange. That's the
Huh.
only trend to me that has been predictable.
That's super interesting because I have seen my favorite pots are the ones that always get touched. They get picked up. It's the thing that bring people to the booth, but
Interesting.
not necessarily the thing anybody buys. Until finally, day 2 of the show, of a weekend, a 2-day show or something, once either somebody comes back, which is always exciting, or, just that right person comes in that's not
Right.
scared by a whole $100 or something. I mean, we don't
Right.
have, ours is relatively speaking, cheap pots. Not to people who aren't potters, but
Right.
again, utilitarian. You can only push it
Right.
so far. But it's interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
That's
Crazy.
the thing.
Michigan was nuts. I sold vases and teapots one weekend and cups and mugs. People were buying them by the sets instead of the individuals, and I don't sell sets. But they were like, "I want these 6, please." And I'm like, "Well, that's the only 6 I have." Okay. Sure.
But
But
great. Yes,
it
please.
seemed yeah, it seemed geared more towards cups and mugs, and somebody else joked with me. They're like, "Next year, if you bring more cups and mugs, they're not gonna sell." I'm like, "I know. I know."
100%. This is also super interesting because the theory I've been working with recently, well, the curiosity I've had, we haven't made a bunch of new stuff to try this out, but the curiosity I've had is that people are mostly interested in the novel, right? So a teapot is novel, an olive oil pourer, a garlic grater, a butter dish, all things that are singular. You don't typically buy a set of teapots,
Mhm.
right? You don't have multiple olive oil pourers or things that you're not worried if they don't match what somebody already
Right.
has. That's
Right.
the theory that I want to test out next. But to your point,
Interesting.
we could test it out one season and then it could just all be garbage the next one.
Who knows? There's really and every potter, at least I talk to at shows, is different. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I always sell out of my fill in the blank here." And then I talk to them a few days later, they're like, "I only sold half of them." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, interesting." So I operate under the mentality of make whatever the hell you want, and if people buy it, cool. And if they don't, sucks because you still have to eat, but someone will buy it eventually. It's not if it will sell, it's when it will sell.
Yeah. Which reminds me, it's so funny how things change, I guess, because I'm thinking of how many times I heard people say this over and over again when I first started the podcast, like make what you love and then figure out how to sell it second. Make what you love. And I'm sitting here going like, that sounds great, but like if you're trying to do this full time, you still have to sell the work and pay the bills.
Right.
And yet now, years later, I'm like, yeah, you have to make what you love because it is a crapshoot. You don't know what's going to sell and you figure it out later.
And I think that work that you like or love looks different. It feels different. It translates to the public or a specific person differently than work made to sell. And I mean, that's like I started doing this crazy shit over here on these pots because that's what I wanted to do one day. And I was like, I'm sick of making these pots that I think will sell or that I
Mhm.
think someone is going to think is cool. I'm just going to make stuff that I think is cool, stuff that I like. I mean, any new design I try is like, I'm obsessed with this plant right now. I have to figure out how to make this work because this is what I want to do. And people ask me, do you have any olive oil pourers? And I'm like, no, I don't make this. I don't want to make those. I don't want to buy a little, what do you call the little pourer spout things? I don't want to buy those.
Stopper.
I don't want to fit a stopper to a clay piece. I'd rather spend 5 hours putting together a teapot handle.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. I was like, I would so much rather fit clay to a stopper
No,
than
no,
assemble a teapot, which is the
no,
beautiful
no.
thing because everybody wants to do something different.
Right.
And I can
And
say, you want a teapot?
exactly.
Go buy Olivia's teapot.
There you go. You want
Yeah.
olive oil? Go talk to Rebecca. She's got olive oil. Cruets?
I just say
Cricket.
pourers, which are still hard to
Pourers.
say because it's like pourers. Dispensers? Can we go with dispensers?
We can go
Are
with
they
this
cheaper if they're dispensers
Yeah.
and more expensive if they're cruets?
Cruets. I think
Anyways,
so, yeah.
definitely. Oh my gosh. There's so many things I still want to talk about, but I also want to just ask a very open-ended question in terms of we've talked about the fact that you're in Memphis, that you have some mostly college students helping on the studio side of things, and that you are driving like a Midwesterner all over the place to sell these pots, which is maybe not always efficient, but gets the name out there. And
Yes.
I am definitely of the opinion that like doing markets for a period of time is the fastest way to just get yourself out there,
Right.
learn about how to sell your work, learn about what's connecting with people and how to talk about it on the internet eventually, yada,
Mhm.
yada, yada. But I know how much on average we do at a market. And now Ann Arbor's a lot bigger and a lot longer show. So bigger shows obviously make a bigger difference. But the thing of it is it is also very seasonal. So either you have to try and like make enough money in a 5-month period to get through the whole year or sell coffee in January. Nothing wrong with that. I hear Starbucks has great healthcare.
I've heard that too. They pay well hourly as well. I've looked into it this year, 2025.
The year of our Lord.
The year of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
I think there was a comma actually in between there. Jesus Christ.
Jesus
shoot.
Christ. Okay, what's the question?
All right. What do you want people to know, or what, like, when you're talking to assistants about, like, hey, you want to do this for a living? Here's what we have to talk about. What do you wish people knew, or what do you want people to know about, like, how you actually make this work?
There's a lot of no's. Like when you're making work that you believe in, the work that you're passionate about or like are really obsessed with, you have to be putting yourself out there, right? And like we could get into gallery exhibitions and competitions and all that shit. But there's a lot of no's. And it's like if you let the no's keep you down, you're not going to go anywhere. So that's what I tell my assistants. And I guess now people I don't know, like if you want a teapot exhibited at an NCCA and a specific teapot show, you have to apply to the teapot show. But it would help if you've applied to 2 or 3 teapot shows already and you know exactly what they're looking for. and you've been told no that many times. So your expectation isn't high at all. Do competitions and exhibitions and gallery features make you a ton of money? Not really. But they kind of get you connected further with your community. And in my opinion, you get to an opportunity where you can teach people how you make your work. And fortunately for us, we all make work differently. So what I've told my assistant is be ready to put yourself out there. Be ready for a lot of no's, but like keep doing it because people are going to get so annoyed that you're still putting yourself out there. One day they're going to say yes. And we're going to be here with a teapot waiting for it. Right. This is part of it, like if you want to make this work, you have to make it work.
As someone who didn't go to school for ceramics, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear yours since you did go to school, and also like, did you always know you wanted to do, like you went into college knowing like, I want to make pots for a living?
Absolutely
Like,
not.
let's back that up first. Let's answer that question first before I say what I was about to say.
Okay, I'd never thought about clay in my life before college. Never. I had done a minor 3D making. My high school art teacher, who ended up being my mentor later in life, she's who lives right outside of Detroit, so I got to see her recently. She was a bookmaker. That's what she majored in. So she taught me, everything art, but she also taught me how to make books. That was about as 3D as I had gotten. Everything else was 2D. I was going to school for drawing and photography because I was running a photography business and I've been drawing for 10 years, and I got to say I'm really good.
I'm going to pause you right here, and I want to make sure everybody hears that, because when they go to your Instagram, they're going to see how you photograph everything on white backgrounds, and then they're going to come at me for how I tell people not to photograph things on white backgrounds, and now it all makes sense, because you actually know what you're doing. So, like, yes, you can do white backgrounds when you understand lighting and equipment and shooting in manual. All this makes sense.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Well, I've heard your talks about not shooting on a white background, and I'm like, sorry, Rebecca, this worked for me. It's all a system now.
If it actually works, when it actually works for you, I'm all for it. It's when people write to me and say, I'm really struggling with getting my glaze colors to look right. The white never looks white, and I'm using my cell phone. And I'm like, okay, well, we can't do... It's like the saying when people say, like, you can have it good, fast, or cheap, pick two.
Right.
Like, you can't have all of those things together. You get to pick one or the other, and then we will continue.
No, there is a lot of equipment and professional lighting and a whole stage, and I have a very nice camera with very nice lenses, and I put them through a photo editing situation. Right, and I shoot a manual, and there's a lot of shots that people don't see that are bad or not great. You guys get the best ones on Instagram, okay? That's my digital portfolio. But, yeah, white background is not for everyone, and I'm not a fan of the classic gradient background. My work does not look good in that situation. I think it's dated, and if people wanna come at me, bring it on. And this is shown to be better in publication as well, because people are able to isolate the pot itself and move it wherever they want to. So I used to shoot with some colored background. I've recently
text over in a negative space.
Oh, I'm so mad. I recently started playing with some black backgrounds, like all black where you can't see anything, but like with some white pots that are hard to shoot in the white setting. But we'll see. It's on the back burner. But yes.
We'll talk about that when you are in Milwaukee for the same show. We should do like a whole thing. Anyways, I digress.
Perfect. Yeah,
Back to painting and 2D and...
Yeah. I was running a photography business, and I had just started doing a bunch of weddings, and I was making money, which was really nice because my parents were super worried about, oh, she's going into art. I'm not good at much else, okay? I'll just say. Art is it. She's going into art. She's not going to make any money. She's been drawing for 10 years, and now she's got this photography thing. So they were super jazzed about the weddings, which I wasn't. So, I was shooting, and then I was like, okay, I'll start taking these college courses for photography. I learned a lot more, and I'll go to school for photography and drawing. And then the year I went, the photography teacher, who I adored, I did some dual enrollment with him as well. He retired. And so they had no photo teacher. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is sick. Okay, whatever. So I just kind of skated through that first semester. And then all of my friends that I had made at that point were like, "Hey, we know, like, you gotta take 2D design and 3D design. After that, you take hand building because 'cause we're gonna be ceramic majors. Do you wanna take hand building?" And I was like, "No, not really." And they're like, "Well, if you wanna hang out, like, we'd have got no time for you outside of the studio. So if you wanna hang out, you're in the hand building class or not." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I took hand building and, like, I walked in the first
You
day.
got you got peer pressured.
I did. I got peer pressured into trying clay,
You got peer pressured into hand building.
into hand building class. It was like the coolest room in the department, and they had this big like atrium sky, and the chair of the department is a ceramics professor, so like he gets a ton of, whatever. All those kids seemed cooler. But I walk in my first day and there's like 20 people and they're all sitting around covered in clay. There's a pot of coffee brewing and there's like rock and roll music on and like everyone's just like hanging out. And I was like, this is our class. This is what you're telling me, that this is our 8 a.m. class. Like, we were gonna do this for 2 hours. I'm in. I'm so in. Then I started working with this 3D thing that I hadn't before, and it was weird, and it was cool, and I was really good and really bad. And then, like, the way I did school was kind of backwards. I took a semester off. I dropped out of a few freshman classes because I couldn't conceptually get there. And then so I was taking, like, 3D design and throwing one because you take throwing one after hand building. Taking those at the same time, which 3D is a prerequisite for hand building and throwing. So my professor, same professor of both, was like, "What's going on? Like, why how are you in both these classes?" I'm like, "You signed it." Like, I don't know. So then I started this whole, like, 3D track that I hadn't thought about, and I'm like, "Oh, like, we get to talk about form for a month. This is awesome. We're gonna talk about form." And so, then you start throwing, and you kinda get addicted to it, and then before I knew it, I had switched to ceramics and drawing. Those are my 2. So I doubled in that regard and dropped photography altogether. Didn't do it for a couple years, and then my father, who's an IT guy, was like, "You're gonna have to market yourself. If ceramics and drawing are what you're gonna do, you need a camera, you need photo editing software, and you need a situation where you're taking good photos. So we're gonna help you do that. And I'm gonna send you the bill." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, bud. I don't know that helped, but thank you. This is great." So then after college, I mean, I became kind of obsessed with it, right? Had this kind of really rigorous, you could say like old army training that used to be super prevalent in academia and like early mid 2000s. And I had to take a year off after I graduated because I had to figure out, do I love this or have I just been kind of like manipulated into this for the last however many years?
Peer pressured. Peer
Peer
pressured
pressure,
into yeah.
manipulate, fill in the blank however you. Do I actually love this? So I took a year off and I waited tables and I was like, I'm just gonna make some money, milk some pot, and just like keep my head down and figure it out. And then after 8 months, I was like, wow, I hate that I have to do something in my field because this is like soul sucking. Like I just can't do this anymore. And I said, I'll move anywhere in the world as long as I get a job doing something around clay. And it was back to my hometown. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I started working in a studio and I was just like, I still wasn't making work really. I was there like shop tech. So I was mopping the floors every night. I was vacuuming on face buckets, labeling seam pieces, all their reclaim. I don't mind somebody else doing my reclaim that I did for it. All of their reclaim, like everything. I was doing everything. COVID happened. This was like 2019. COVID happened, top of 2020 or 2020, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna lay people off and we're closing the store. You still have a key, you can come if you want." And I had like an order from somebody and I had just started throwing, I had just started doing production for them because they had no idea I could grow. And they're like, "Do you want to try production?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need to get back throwing." And they're like, "Oh, you can throw. Like, let's get you doing it." And they're like, "Yeah, let's listen." So I got laid off and I was working like 2 or 3 other side jobs. Like I was working like 4 jobs at the time because you can't get paid much with it. And so I had to quit those jobs too because those were people involved. I started working at a plant nursery. And so I'd work like 10 to 5. And then at 6, I would go to the studio and just work alone, make whatever I want. And then a couple months later, things started opening back up. And they were like, "Hey, you're not in our first round of hires, blah, blah, blah." And then my mom called me one day and she said, "Hey, I want you to think about not going back to this." And I said, well, mom, this is what my plan was to come back and work in this field. She said, no, no, you need to rent a studio space because your pots are way better when you're not making them awful. She really leaned into that. And I was like, what, can I afford it? And she's like, get a job, like, get real, grow up, get a job, get an adult job, rent a studio space and move on. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was right.
Also,
That's
like,
a great question.
bravo, mom.
Great. My mom's amazing. She
Like,
is.
props to her to be like, to not just to say, go get a job and make pots. She wasn't saying, go get a job and make your nice pots on the weekend. She was saying,
Right.
your work is better.
Your work's
So, in
better.
order to make that great work,
Right.
go do this.
So
That's a really important reframe, I feel like.
right. Totally. And she was like, I didn't ask my dad, who was my financial advisor, but she was really into the studio space is something you need to make work, make it happen.
Mhm.
This is how you should make it happen. And I was like, okay. So thankfully, my boss at that new job that paid a lot an hour, a lot, and had benefits. My boss was my brother. And he said, work here as long as you want. He gave me a job immediately. I said, okay, well, I need to leave at 3 every day. I'll come in as early as you want, but I need to leave at 3 every day because I have scheduled studio time. And he said, okay. So I started doing farmers markets then and started selling work because I was making work I liked. Started selling work. It was not very expensive for a month looking back at it now, but I had to start reducing my hours. And eventually he came to me and was like, so do you know that we can see like all the things you do on your computer? Right. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, we know you've been updating your website and shipping work and like researching pottery stuff all day. You should quit. And I was like, Dad, no, of course I didn't do that. And he's like, yeah, it's okay. You should quit. You should quit and you should try to do this. Like, just try to do it. Worst case, you're homeless, but not really because I have a couch. So worst case, you're sleeping on my couch. So all right.
Right.
And he said, if
Worst
you
case,
try
you're coming back to work for me and not shipping
exactly,
pots while you're working for me.
exactly. He said, try it for a year. If it falls down, come back. We'll give you another job. And I said, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, okay. And then I discovered, are you familiar with Zapplication, the website with all the
Oh, yeah.
shows where you can, okay. So it
Oh,
was like
yeah.
that same week I discovered Zapplication. And I told him I'd give him like 2 or 3 months to train my replacement. But I discovered Zapplication that week and was like, I can give you 1 month. I could be booking myself every single weekend. I have to go. I have pots to make. I have to go. And he's like, okay,
What year was this?
this was
How long ago was this?
maybe 3 years ago. Maybe,
Okay.
yeah, I think 3 years ago. This will be the 3rd year doing shows, especially full time. But yeah, I think so 3 years ago. And there have been some hard years. There's been some hard months. There's been some hard quarters. But I've never been so underwater that I had to say, except for the year of our Lord here in 2025, that I had to say, like, oh, I need to get a job. Like, I need to get a job where I can do nothing and stare at a computer and get paid for it. You figure out how to juggle money pretty quick. And I tell people this is a salary job, it's not a regular paying job. I get a certain amount per year and I have to make it work however it's supposed to work. And my partner is also self employed and we run a high stress household because his work is seasonal as well. And there are months where we're like, neither of us have gotten paid in like 2 or 3 months. We have to eat tuna again. But then there's months where we're like, we have so much money, let's go on a month vacation. And we do. There's times where we can and times where we can't, depending on the economy or the weather or what's selling. It's an interesting existence, I'll say.
Well, that's the particularly crazy thing about shows also is like you will have the cost to do it regardless of the outcome. We've had shows where actually just this summer, not the shirt I'm wearing, a different one. Day one was like our highest grossing single day we've ever had in the last 4 years. And then we're like, oh my God, tomorrow's going to be amazing. This is fantastic. Day two, it was even hotter than day one. So, of course, no one came. We were on asphalt in the sun with no shade. Like you literally just started sweating as soon as you stepped foot out of your car. Day one was amazing because everybody looked at the forecast and literally everybody who was going to come to the show came day one. That has nothing to do with how good anybody is at sales, what your marketing is like, if you're good at responding to people who ask why the work is thin and it's because you're good at what you do. Like, No, you can't control Mother Nature at all.
You
Like, it's
can't.
just sometimes it's a crapshoot.
It seems to be, I mean, our climate is changing, right? And some of our weather events seem to be getting a little bit more extreme. And like you go through a couple of those under a metal frame tent full of pods, it's like, yo, I don't care what I have to do, but I'm never going to put myself in this position again. Like it is terrifying
Physically.
for the safety of yourself.
But also, even like, do you have that much float to get you through multiple, let's say you have 2 shows in a row that the weather is bad. Well, maybe 2 shows in a row is an entire month of income, right? And so then you're pricing your work fairly. You're pricing it in a way that reflects the quality of the work and the value and the craftsmanship and everything you put into it. You're not necessarily then doubling that price in order to give yourself the cushion that should next weekend's show be pulled up
Mhm.
with a tornado, you'll still be able to pay your rent.
There are some, I mean, let's say May and June were awful because I had 2, maybe 3 big shows scheduled, 2 of which really good. I do them every year. It rained the entire weekend, and I made a fifth of what I typically would, and, like, my motto is always, "It's terrible to go into a show needing money," but sometimes you go into a
Mm.
show really needing some money because you had to get a new roof. The transmission on your car went out, and it's like, "Okay, thank God I have some saving or some cushion in the bank account, or we would be without a house, you know?" But thankfully, like that, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm trying to switch to a few more online sales as well, because I'm not putting a tent somewhere. I'm not paying anywhere from $300 to $1,000, 300 to $1,000 to just put my tent on a piece of grass or parking lot to then get rained on all weekend. I'm not leaving it up to the weather to decide whether I make money. I can't. So it's a little bit out of necessity because the shows are kind of crazy.
They are so crazy. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be too much of a downer about shows because you also then, we've met some really lovely people that I don't know how else we would have met by shouting into the internet over and over again.
You wouldn't.
Coming full circle to what we started with, they are the fastest way to get yourself in front of a lot of people. But then it's like, so think, I guess, actually, this goes exactly to what we were talking about in the market masterclass that we had another potter, Amber Factor. She's Factor? Oh, see, now you know why I have everybody say their name out loud before I know as soon as I go to repeat somebody's name, I'm just like, I'm going to F it up. Anyway, she's a potter who lives off of the coast of British Columbia, like
Oh,
super
wow.
remote. So I loved getting her perspective on how she's doing markets because it's like, okay, everybody can hear me talk about it and be like, yeah, Rebecca, you're an extrovert, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's all the reasons you can do that and I can't. And Amber describes herself as an introvert, like, but she's still mostly doing markets. So how does this work? But we were talking about in this class inside of the community, like, it's not only the direct ROI of that particular market. Like, yes, as we've just described, sometimes you need the ROI, return on
Right.
investment, of that market to pay the bills that month. But it is also you're doing the markets for a myriad of different reasons along with that
Right.
as well.
And you think about, I mean, I'm a self proclaimed introvert as well, but I know that the state of Michigan has never seen pots like mine before. Most people haven't, but I've never taken anything to Michigan. And so it's like, okay, if I have an opportunity to go to a new city, then I can either sprinkle work in that city or connect with a handful of people in that city. And I do get a lot of online interactions that come from markets. And so then I have those people kind of in my network of internet community that either come onto my email list or are on my Instagram that then, like, I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I wish I lived maybe more central than Tennessee so I could get more places, but I've been a few places. We'll work on it. We'll work on, like, Colorado and Nevada and California and the East Coast.
I was like, are we talking central geographically or central to the place that, because, yeah, trying to be central to both. I'm thinking, considering we just drove to North Carolina because, it's only 12 hours, so
It's only
why would
12
you drive?
hours.
Why would you
Right.
fly? I'm like, Tennessee would be such a short drive to North Carolina and to all of the, like, when I start thinking about all the pottery tours and everything over out that way, like, just depends on what you want to be central to, I suppose.
Well, and Memphis is on the southwest corner. Like, you can drive 20 minutes to get to Arkansas and Mississippi. So if you're in East Tennessee, like near Atlanta, yes, it is very easy to get, hop, skip, and a jump, if you will. But here, I mean, it's like 9 hours to North Carolina. Like, it's a haul.
Yeah, I was like, it was still shorter. Like, we went through. Wait, it has to be. Is it really? Okay, this doesn't actually matter. I should stop. Apparently, the new theme of the Maker's Playbook is to talk about Midwestern geography at the end of every interview. And also, what is the Midwest? Is Tennessee the Midwest? I don't know. Who am
No,
I going to piss off this time when
no.
I say this?
Let's piss some people off. Tennessee is not the Midwest. Tennessee is deep south, not deep south, but it is south,
Not deep South, but it's the South.
not deep south.
As soon as sweet tea is like an average drink option on a menu, you are in the South.
When half the cuisine is fried, you're in the South. Yes.
I don't know. That might just be in America across the board, but for sure, sweet tea.
Maybe it's in America. But no, Tennessee,
I was like, it's hard to mitigate the fried.
it is. You're right. Tennessee is definitely in the South. Kentucky, though, I think is Midwest. Arkansas is the South, although it is west of is Kentucky considered the South?
This is a good question.
Tennesseans, typically, in Memphis at least, consider Tennessee the Mid-South. That is a subterm, Mid-South.
Well, I mean, obviously, when we talk about the Midwest, there's nothing mid or west about. Like, this isn't a geographical term. We've
This is
established
just
that.
the Midwest is in the middle. That's it. It's just right smack in the middle.
Even everyone from Ohio would disagree.
Yeah, okay. All right.
West, east, north.
Middle, north.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I got nothing. This all has been totally fascinating to me because, and this is exactly why I started this podcast, because when I have looked at your work online for a while now, which was so funny when you sent me a message about something with the podcast, and I was like, wait, like in my brain, you were somewhere else in the ceramics world. And I was like, how do you know about my podcast?
Oh, wow.
So that was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for validating me.
Your podcast accompanies me in the studio a lot.
Yay. And all those Midwestern drives.
Indeed.
But no, I see there's, like, outside looking in, I see kind of two different tracks of people in clay. And I feel like what's interesting to me is that you're somewhere in the middle, maybe? I don't know. That's a bold statement. Let me explain the tracks. There's either, like, went to school for clay or had some formal training, and that typically then transfers into an MFA or an apprenticeship of some kind or what have you, where you have the language of clay, you have the history, you have all of this, like, kind of formalness around it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see happening with that track is often, a variety of residencies, and then, like you said, getting stuff into shows, into galleries, into magazines, kind of all of the little, like, ticket on the resume list.
Right.
And then also doing markets of a certain caliber, right? Certain level caliber market, caliber
You're doing great.
markets, capital A art, right? I'm winning over here. Or you basically have what I did, which was like community studio. You totally get obsessed with clay. Your greatest point of access is the internet. So you're trying to figure out what you don't know, trying to search for something that you don't know what to search for, to figure it out as you go along. And where that business growth typically is like, workshops, also big audience size, selling on the internet, that type of, I see these, they're not always this separate, obviously,
Right.
but like I see these two different worlds in clay.
Right.
I don't know where I was actually going with this, but
I love being kind of in
I
the
just
middle.
assumed you had like an MFA.
No, I don't.
I thought you had an MFA and a fancy residency. So way to have a voice without that.
Thank you. I thought about it, and I was really encouraged to do it when I was graduating undergrad. I wasn't where I needed to be for an MFA mentally, emotionally, maturely. I wasn't thinking about how I'm thinking about work now, then. And I needed
Mm.
to, I needed to figure out if I loved it myself first. And honestly, I've been thinking about MFA more recently, and now I know where I'd want to go. I'd know who I want to study under or what situation I want to be in, or you know, I already have a little bit of self-rapport within my work now. I have a starting point, whereas before I was just like, I'm shooting shots in the dark here, just trying to figure it out. But now I feel like, well, I figured it out. I have this body of work. I have a direction I'm going. I know what I'm talking about in some regard. Like now I feel like I could confidently go into MFA and get what I needed to get out of it. But how do you set everything in your life down to go back to school? So my life is changing in a million ways right now, so I'm interested to see what the next year will look like. But thank you. Such a nice compliment. I wish I had an MFA.
I mean, sometimes I do because I just want to teach formally. And then I talk to my friends who teach formally, and I'm like, actually, no, I don't. Never mind. We're fine.
But I just think about sometimes like what would it be like to have a job where I teach ceramics formally? And it kind of sounds great. But I've talked to my parents about this because they would love for me to be a teacher. And I said, look, you know, if I go get an MFA, it's for me. It's not so that I become a teacher. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But a school I'm looking at in New York, I will go to it so I could be an artist in New York, not so that I can be a professor in Tennessee. And so they're giving me one direction that fits within their worldview. And I'm like, but this is not the outcome you think it will be. That's fine. Fine with me.
Right. Well, I love that you took the time to figure that out. And I love that you told everybody that as well, because I think it's not, well, number one, it's really difficult to do, right? To be able to pause and take a breath and be an adult and all of these things and all the demands that are all around us, it's just really hard, pragmatically
It's really
speaking.
hard. Yeah.
But within that, setting aside the pragmatic side of, obviously I have to bring up the word healthcare in every call. So setting aside that, like, it's also really hard mentally. Like, even if all of the logistics are taken care of, you don't have to hypothetically worry about where to live or groceries or any of this stuff. Like, just to be able to pause and think about, like, what do I want? Is this my passion? Do I want to make this my life and my career? Like, these are really big questions that it's really easy to get swept up in whatever the current, I don't know, vibe, what everybody else around you is saying and all of that type
Right.
of stuff. And so, I think it's exciting for people to also see, like, you have built this very distinct voice in such a way that didn't require, like, going straight from a bachelor's to an MFA to having a residency to doing all these things that we see other people do that have, really established voices. So props to that.
Well, thank you. That's so kind of you to say.
And also, I'm excited we're in this same show because, this is probably going to air after that. So this is going to be
Right.
funny. But I'm like,
Amazing.
okay, so we're going to dinner. We're getting drinks. Obviously, all this is happening.
Okay, I'm in.
I've just put it on a recording, so you can't tell me no. That's weird.
Oh, but it will come out after, so I'll be off the hook.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The socially weird part about the internet, timing. It's a funny thing. Awesome.
I also have never been to Milwaukee, so I would love any food recommendations. I love eating.
I am glad, for the sake of a person who has grown up in what we've established to be the South, that you are coming in the summer and not February, because it is pretty miserable. You'll be this will be like probably a reprieve of heat for you.
Probably.
I don't know. Could be the same. We'll see.
It might be the same.
But
That's
it's a
okay.
good time. There's a lot more going on here than we thought when we moved, to be honest, which was a lovely surprise.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. What a glowing review of Milwaukee.
I can't wait to go to Milwaukee. That's just on my bucket list.
Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah. Number one, tick.
Yeah. First thing.
Amidst all of this and talking about your style and your voice, where should we send people on the internet to actually see the teapots and all the surface decoration?
The best place to go would be Instagram at Olivia Avery Art. No punctuation, no underscores, no bullshit. And then I have a website that badly needs to be updated. It's oliviaaveryart.com. And I won't when this airs, but I have some mugs available now. So yeah, that's where
But you'll be making more, so
I will
doesn't
be
matter.
making more. I'll be doing more online drops as the year progresses. I think my next drop will be some sort of like mini mug madness. I'm making all these tiny espresso and Americano mugs and I'm obsessed. They're so cute. But I'm like, I think people might love these. So maybe I'll do a mini mug.
We have had some espresso cup like prototypes out in our booth display, and if nothing else, it definitely brings people in squealing.
So cute.
I don't know how many people actually drink it. Like, we pour espresso in them, but people just think it's super cute. And I'm like, but you can drink coffee out of it.
Yeah, that's how we have quite a few because I'm the mug connoisseur in our house. But my man of the diva, he likes his creamer heated to match his coffee. So I heat his creamer in a mini mug and then pour it into the coffee. And then any extra coffee that doesn't fit in those two mugs goes in the mini mug.
Nice. That's hilarious. I love it. Well, we will put the links in the show notes to come check out your stuff, and I will see you in person soon, which is exciting. That usually doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, like a couple weeks.
I'm trying not to think about that. You got to get back to all those dots.
I have a lot of
Thank
work
you
to
so
do
much.
before
Oh my
then.
gosh, I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
I hope this conversation with Olivia has reminded you that building technical excellence and following your creative instincts aren't opposing forces. They can actually reinforce each other in powerful ways. That the foundation of being able to throw efficiently, to self-evaluate your work quickly, to understand your processes inside and out is what creates the space to pursue the intricate, time-intensive work that truly excites you. If you've been feeling torn between making what you love and making what you think will sell, it's okay to stop trying to predict what people want. Olivia's experience shows us that markets are unpredictable anyway. And frankly, Francesco and I's own experience line up with that as well. As much as I try to track the information and strategize and be, strategic around all of this and learn and gather that data that you know that I love. And just about every other person I've talked to about markets has pretty much the same feeling. So I think that at the end of the day, approaching them as a piece of the marketing that you are doing to get your name out to people, while hopefully earning a little bit of money, is definitely a more mentally sustainable approach to shows and markets than assuming that they are going to be your one main source of sales that will be enough to pay a salary and maybe even contribute to retirement one day. Of course, there are always exceptions, and this is not an absolute truth. If you've listened to just a handful of other episodes here on the podcast from me, you know how I feel about people giving simplified, absolute truth type answers to something as complicated and nuanced as independent small businesses that influence and impact directly each of our own unique lives. And how the needs of these things change as your life changes, as the phase that you're in changes, both personally and professionally. Yes, you can find answers that work for your specific needs and life and this phase that you're currently in. But also, yes, there is often more than one answer. As I so often say in discussions with community members, it all just depends. And while most of the internet is not exactly set up for such nuanced conversation, I am thrilled to say that is exactly what the community is set up for. But you don't need to hear me explain that yet again.
Hi everyone, this is Melissa from MWY Pottery, and I'm so glad to have found the Maker's Playbook community. Rebecca has done an amazing, thoughtful job of curating a group of people who really care about each other and root for each other. Some folks in the community have been members for years, and it's very clear why. I joined about a year ago, and already I've learned so many things from the other members that have helped me make important business decisions based on things that I hadn't learned or seen anywhere else on Instagram or other places on the internet. The community is for all sorts of people, from full-time artists to side saunterers like myself. I love that Rebecca leads with her values, which is so important, especially nowadays in the US. If you're interested in learning more, I'd be happy to answer any questions and share my experience. Please feel free to send me a message on Instagram at MWYpottery. Thanks.
Whether you're trying to figure out your pricing, navigate the art fair circuit, get out of the art fair circuit, or just want support while you experiment with new creative directions, you'll find fellow makers who truly get it, and a ton of ever-growing practical educational resources to support you along the way at makersplaybook.com/community. So until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality, because together, we've got this. Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Christy Kotzfan, with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present.
Now I know. This is only my second podcast, too. So if anything goes wrong, just like, hey, can you not do that? And I'll say, oh, okay, fine.
So what you're telling me is I was slow on the uptake here. That's what I'm hearing.
Maybe.
Listen, I am not building this to keep up with anybody. Oh my God. When I start seeing people jump at trends or whatever, and I'm like, no, I'm not. We got this recorded like a month ahead of time. We're just going to keep on keeping on.
Right. You're doing God's work, okay? You're rocking it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. That feels very official also as someone who does currently live in the Bible Belt. I'm like, all right, that gets more credit.
It does. I've seen the Lord's work, and this is it.
Oh my God. Hilarious. I do think I should actually leave in all of this. Now that we've joked about not leaving it in, I'm like, these are gems.
That's fun. You could do a blooper section down at the end.
There are so many things that I want to keep in as bloopers, and I have no way of like how to keep track of them throughout all of the episodes, then just like merge everything together in one hilarious thing. I don't know. I don't have a system for that. If anybody's got ideas, by all means, send them my way.
This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.